Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we are reviewing the Will Smith dual performance role of Gemini Man. Now, for me, I mean, like most people, we all love Will Smith. Will Smith, ever since, we saw him, most people saw him for the first time with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, to the action star that he became with Independence Day, Men in Black, and everything. Will Smith is a huge fan favorite for most people, but he hasn't really done a whole lot lately in terms of big kind of standout kind of roles. He's kind of taken a break in a sense. Like, he'll pop up here and there, like with Suicide Squad, and he's got a couple movies that came out this year alone. But so this is kind of his first year, kind of really diving deeply back into everything. So when I saw the trailer for Gemini Man, I was really intrigued by it. I thought the plot of this film was incredibly intriguing, and I thought the actual the CGI look of his younger self actually looked really good. And of course, the cast. I love the people that were casted in this film. The only thing that I was kind of hesitant on was that it was directed by Ang Lee, who I'm not a fan of. Anyone who knows me knows I could not stand Ang Lee's Hulk. I thought it was one of the worst comic book movies ever made. So that was the one hesitant I had about this film, was that he was going to be directing this film. But everything in the trailers, I thought it looked very action-packed. Like I said, I liked the cast, and I thought the Will Smith to Will Smith dynamic actually looked good and actually sounded really well. So I was actually pretty excited for this film. The reviews came out. They aren't very positive, so I figured I'll go in with an open mind and see exactly how I felt about Gemini Man. So let's go ahead and jump into the review and see what I thought. So Gemini Man, the plot of it is basically you have Henry Brogan. He's basically a DIA agent who basically is the world's best sniper/assassin. And he has been doing it for 30 plus years, and he finally wants to retire after killing 72 men because the kills are starting to weigh on him inside, and he's just ready to be done. But then when he finds out that his last kill wasn't a clean kill, and that it was actually done in a evil way, he looks to try to find the reasons why it happened. But in the process, obviously the DIA are, and I know you guys are probably saying it should be DEA, but they are actually called DIA in this film, start sending people out to kill him. And when obviously that fails, they do the next best thing, and they literally send a cloned younger version of him after him. And I can't really go much more into it without spoiling anything, but anyone who's seen the trailer knows that that's exactly what the story plot is. But yeah, that's the general plot for Gemini Man. Now, what works with Gemini Man? Like I said, I like the cast. Will Smith ×2, perfect for me. And I think Will Smith does a great job in this film. As the older Henry, or his younger version, which is called Junior in this film, I think he does both performances really, really well. They're distinct, but alike in the ways they should be alike, but different enough that you can see the older, weathered version to a younger version, and both of them kind of having to come to terms with what's going on and how to deal with it and kind of overcome it at the same time. And I think Will Smith, which honestly, this is the reason why you're coming to see this film. You're coming to see this film because you're seeing Will Smith act in both roles, a younger looking version of himself that probably looks more like his, actually I'd probably say before Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, probably more like 6 degrees of separation Will Smith, to his current day form. And I think Will Smith does a great job. To generate the emotion. He still has that kind of suave, charismatic Will Smith approach to it, just like in all of his films. But the emotional weight that both characters carry, especially Junior, I think Will Smith does a great job overall, and it's definitely a highlight of the film, as it should be. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I'm a huge fan of her. I've always been a huge fan of her. Of course, Scott Pilgrim, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. So anything with Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it, I'm going to be watching it. She plays Danny Zakharowski. She's basically another DIA agent who is basically kind of watching Henry's character, but ends up kind of joining forces with him to try to keep him alive, but also try to figure out how Junior came to be and why Junior's coming after him and stuff like that. And I think that she does a solid job. Could they have given her a little bit more to do in the movie? Absolutely. But for the role that she is doing in the film, Mary Elizabeth Winstead does a great job. Benedict Wong as Baron. I thought he was great in a comical sort of way. He's kind of there to balance out the action with sly comments that counter Will Smith. Benedict Wong, great actor. I love him in the MCU with Doctor Strange, and I think he does a solid job as a supporting cast member in this film. And then, of course, Clive Owen. I love Clive Owen. I've always been a huge fan of Clive Owen, and frankly, we have not gotten enough of Clive Owen here in the last decade. Clive Owen really hasn't been much of a focal point in films anymore. So when I saw that he was basically the evil of this film, because it is Clive Owen that created Junior, and is basically Junior's father in the film, and the one that wants Junior to kill Henry. I feel like Clive Owen is great in these kind of roles. He's great as an authority figure who's just quite evil enough to be the bad guy. If there was a negative towards Clive Owen, is that we didn't get enough of Clive Owen in this film. They should have had at least a few more scenes of Clive Owen where it wasn't just him talking to Junior, just to build his character up a little bit more. I felt like that would have made his character a lot stronger overall, but in the scenes that he is in, he does a great job. I really enjoyed the cast. The action sequences of this movie, I thought were incredibly well done. The first sequence between Henry and Junior, which is in the trailers, is done beautifully. The hand-to-hand combat is really well. Yes, there's some scenes where it's a little too dark and kind of shaky, and it might be a little hard to see, but the actual choreography of the chase sequence in the film I thought was incredibly well done. The shooting back and forth, all of that was shot really well. That's one thing that Ang Lee is actually really good at, is shooting choreography action scenes, in my opinion, and he does it to a flawless degree here, outside of a few little hiccups here or there later in the film because of a darker lit setting. But I really like the action overall between Junior and Henry when they battle, and then even at the end of the film in the third climax, I like that action scene overall. But the highlight of the film is definitely that very first action sequence between Junior and Henry. It's a very long sequence, but it is well worth the price of admission alone. The CGI technology, from making Will look like 51-year-old Will Smith to looking like 23-year-old Junior, that's the big thing with this film. Does it work? Does it look good? Can you watch this movie without being distracted by it? Yes and no. There are moments in this film where Junior, young Will Smith, looks great. To the point where it's like, damn, they actually really did a fantastic job at making this look like a young Will Smith. Now, the first time you see Junior and Will next to each other, there is that kind of uncanny valley, mainly because we know what Will Smith looks like today. So seeing the younger version looks a little alienish in a sense. But for the most part throughout the film, you're bought into Junior looking like a young Will Smith, and it actually looking like a young Will Smith. And for the most part, it does look great. There are certain scenes, especially towards the end of the film, I felt, not so much in the beginning, but towards the latter half of the film, especially the last scene or two of Junior, that just didn't look right. Especially if he's farther away. Like, there's one sequence where he is walking down a street, and the camera's on him, and he looks 100% CGI at that moment. It looks off. And then there was another sequence where he's walking with Henry, and you can tell it just doesn't look right. So yeah, it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword. There are times where it looks fantastic, and then there are times where you're like, wow, that looks bad. So go in with kind of the expectations of not 100% buying into it, but for the most part being kind of solid overall with the look of Junior, because like I said, not about 3/4 of the time it actually works really, really well, but that 1/4 of the time it is very, very noticeable and is very catching to the eye, and it does kind of take you out of the film for that split second until you readjust that it is obviously Will Smith, younger version of Will Smith. So I guess I'll roll this into what does not work in the film. Obviously, the CGI younger version of Will Smith does not work all the way through. Like I said, 3/4 of the time it works totally fine. One of the main problems is the story could be stronger. I would say the first, about the first 45 minutes of the film feels like an entirely separate film than the last hour 15 of the movie. Up into basically from the beginning of the film till when Junior shows up feels like one movie, and then from Junior showing up to the rest of the film feels like a whole separate film. So it's a little kind of jumbled in that kind of sense. That you're watching like what looks like a regular kind of CIA, DIA guy being hunted kind of film, and then it goes full on sci-fi kind of approach. And in the latter half of the film, and it just feels like two separate films overall. So it doesn't flow as good as it should, or as well as it should. And then, like I said, Clive Owen needed to be used more in the film just to solidify his character a lot stronger than it was. And of course, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, like I said, she gets a lot to do in the film, but maybe just kind of a little more oomph of her character could have made hers a little bit stronger. But yeah, it was just, that was kind of the things that just didn't quite work. It's like I said, the special effects of younger Will Smith sometimes didn't work all the way through, and it felt like two separate films once Junior joined the film overall. So yeah, going to overall thoughts of the film, I actually quite enjoyed the movie overall. It's not nearly the best, it's not the best film of the year. It's not even going to be in my top 10 of the year. But for what Ang Lee was doing for this film and what he attempted to do, I can commend him for it. I actually liked the concept of older Will Smith against younger Will Smith. Like I said, the action set pieces I thought were incredibly well done, especially the chase scene that everyone has seen in the trailers. Heck, the motorcycle fights, there's a lot more to that motorcycle fight that you did not see in the trailers, and it is awesome. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this movie. I don't understand all the hate it's getting in terms of reviews, because I enjoyed this movie for the most part, and I would recommend this film overall. It's not the best movie I saw today, and that'll be the next review that I'll have coming out, but I liked it for the most part, and it's definitely something that I would go back and watch again, because sometimes we just need some, not mindless, but like, just action movies. Like I think of this in terms of a sci-fi version of Enemy of the State, which is another Will Smith movie that I really, really love that not a lot of people give enough recognition to. It didn't have to be this incredible, fantastic thing, and it's not trying to be. It's literally taking a very CGI idea and then trying to build a story around it. Does the story work 100%? No, it does not. But the CGI aspect of it with old Will Smith against young Will Smith, I thought worked very, very well. And so I would definitely recommend this film to anyone who is interested in seeing it, because I, like I said, had a good time. So going to my overall score for Gemini Man, I would be giving it a 7.1 out of 10. Like I said, strongly recommend. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody, but I feel like if you're a Will Smith fan and you enjoy Will Smith movies, then I think you guys will like this film for very much. Because you get two Will Smiths for the price of one. And I think for the most part you guys will enjoy this all the way throughout, but don't expect this like phenomenal action film. It's a very solid action film, and I think for the most part, most people would enjoy it. And that's why I definitely would give it a 7.1 out of 10 and recommend the film overall. So obviously it does not hit my top 10 of 2019 so far. So going to the list, everything stays the same with Toy Story 4 at number 1, followed by Avengers Endgame, Joker at number 3 with Peanut Butter Falcon at number 4, Rocket Man at number 5 with Spider-Man Far From Home at number 6, Booksmart at number 7, Us at number 8, John Wick Chapter 3 Pelham at number 9, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at number 10, with It Chapter 2 just outside of the top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the channel so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And also don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next is going to be the review for the third film I saw today, and that is the Adam Devine film Jexy. So if you guys are looking or interested in wanting to know how I have thoughts on that one, go ahead and click on the next video, because that is what's coming up next. And in case I don't see you guys, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.